it's 12 o'clock. It's the top of the hour. Mr. Graham, take us, get us started, and then I'll take over.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks everyone for stopping by, and welcome to today's webinar, Double Your Business with 7 Foundational Systems, with your host, MAPS coach, Monica Reynolds. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the MAPS Group YouTube channel. I will share the link in the chat momentarily. Currently, everyone is on mute. However, Monica does value group participation, so we ask that if you have any questions for your coach, please type them into the chat box located in the taskbar at the bottom of your screen. Y'all know where that is. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That's FASTTRACK. That's all for me, Monica. All yours. Ready to go?
Excellent. Okay, so I'm also the VP of MAPS. I run MAPS, and so this is my one thing. I dug the well on assistance and systems. I wrote books in the 90s, the early 90s, that were published on assistance and building team. First one, there was a guy I met at a seminar, and it was a seminar and I was speaking at. He came up to me and goes, "You're the person that wrote this book." And he asked me a bunch of questions, and I said, "Who was that guy?" And they go, I said, "He sure had a lot of questions." They go, "Oh, that's Gary Keller. He's starting a franchise." And that was in the 90s when the market was, really bad. And I said, "Well, good luck with that. And look at me. Now I work for him." So there you have it. So that's kind of a fun story. So I'm passionate about this. And so we're going to get started. I've got 16 slides to go through, and I'm going to go through pretty quickly. Don't get upset, because you're going to be able to have these slides. Everything's going to be furnished to you. So just hang on. So Stephanie, let's move to the next slide, please. So there's 7 foundational things that I see, and I've trained more assistants and agents than anyone in the country regarding assistants and teams. And I can share with you very clearly that when you have an assistant and you have a great relationship, it's because your communication's there. It's kind of like a marriage. 2 reasons people get divorces, communication and money sometimes. So with this situation here, it's usually communication when we lose an assistant. And so I want you to really hear loud and clear that I firmly believe that the lines of communication have to be established, and there's several ways to do that. And yet I'm going to share with you also that in the communication log, that is where you're establishing firm and clear communication, setting expectations with the clients to build repeat and referral. So there's 2 parts to that. That's with your team members and that's with your clients. Now, this is the first system. And so when you look at this slide, you have to have systems in place to build a duplicatable and scalable business. And then it increases business. It's efficient. Customer service, you can duplicate your success over and over again. You're setting expectations. You're not reinventing the wheel every time. Go, okay, I've got a listing. I had to do it now. Okay, now what do I do? Okay, oh, I forgot to do that. I need to do that. So you've got these checklists. You've got these emails that go out. You've got the 36 touch. You've got all these things into place, and it's scalable. So everything that we talk about is duplicatable and scalable, whether you're doing 20 transactions or you're doing 100 transactions a month. It doesn't matter. If you're doing 20 transactions a year or you're doing 2,000, they're all duplicatable and scalable. They're all the systems that match for any type of business and any type of production that you're at. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So on the next slide that you're going to see is that this is the Friday report. I used to work for Dave Ramsey, if some of you are familiar with that, and we had to turn in these Friday reports. And basically it says 5 things I accomplished to move the business forward in week high, week low, and what did you do to wow a customer? What a great thing for a team member, your assistant. Now, these are foundation communication things so that it's done automatically. So on Friday, you get this report instead of going, oh, I wonder what we got done this week. And yet for the assistant, it also checks the mark like, okay, we did these things. We moved these things forward. This was important. Week high. What was the week high? What was the week low? Sometimes that week low can be a personal thing, and we're in a relationship with our team member. We need to know that, and we need to hear that. And what did you do to wow a customer? Constantly, having that, the expectation that your assistant is an extension of you and that he or she is listening to that client and performing at a very high level. A communication log, of course, is for the client and making sure that there is a detailed record of when that client was called and how often that was called, and just a brief mention what that call could be about. It could be about, sign, checking that the sign got put in. It can be so simple like that. Now, if we go to the next slide, and forgive me, I talk fast because I'm going to give you a whole bunch of information here. So communication, when you're building a team, you want to have a weekly team member, even if it's one assistant. You got to have a teammate. You're gonna meet. You got to have a monthly meeting, and you got to have a year-end business planning meeting. And every assistant in my world has a business plan. And so in the training that I do, they go through a business plan of how many reviews they're going to get, how many referrals they're going to bring to the team, all the different systems and processes that they're going to put into place. And yet there is a team meeting, whether you have one assistant or many, it doesn't matter. You're going to meet the same time each week for 30 minutes. And what happens, the biggest mistakes that I hear, now this is a foundational piece on communication. Everybody's got to be going in the same direction. They got to have and understand what the goal is. And unfortunately, sometimes when I'm talking to a team member, they don't know what the goal is for the year. They don't know if they're on track or not. This is the first quarter, ladies and gentlemen, and you should be on track. And if you're not on track, what are the things that you're going to do in the second quarter? And that a great executive assistant is so very helpful. So the first foundational piece is communication. So on a scale of 1 to 10, just write in the chat box here, just an overall view. Tell me, on a 1 to 10, how do you feel your communication is with your assistant and or your clients? So wherever you are, 1 to 10, where are you? Put it in the chat box. 5. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And so when you do the trainings in the future, if you decide to go in the trainings, you will raise that up to a 9+ for sure. And I never give anybody a 10. Oh, there's some 8s and 7s. Okay, good, come on. Okay. And yet I never give anyone a 10 because there's always room for improvement. There's always something you can do better. Okay, good. So I'm glad nobody put a 10 in there. Okay, system number 2, we're moving on. The hiring system. Wow. There's career visioning is something that you should take, and I've taken it several times, probably 5 times. And every time I hear it differently because I'm at a different stage of listening, if that makes sense. And system number 2 has to be tips on how to read a KPA and how to read a DISC profile. You should know how to do that. Your market center can train you on that. Career visioning trains you on that. And so in that system of hiring, which is so, so important, you have to know that you have to take the time to discover who they are, hear their life story. Are they victim or are they victorious in their life? And that to me is such a key thing. Now, one of the things that I do in the hiring process, and I have my complete hiring process is complementary to career visioning. So we have a little background noise. If you could take care of that, Graham, thank you. So one of the things that I do, this is going to be a great tip, pay attention. Once I get the resumes, I divide it up into 3 piles. One is admin experience. One is admin with real estate experience. The third pile on a resume is what I call Burger King. Well, I put myself through school at Kentucky Fried Chicken, so it's not anything other than they have no admin experience, okay? All right, tip number 2, I call the top 5 that I like in whatever pile. So usually it's, admin, I'll pick a couple there and a couple in admin with real estate. And I'll call them and I'll say, hey, Jacob, did I catch you at a good time? Great. Can I just ask you a couple of questions? Thanks for sending your resume. I'm Monica Reynolds, Keller Williams, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll say, just tell me a little bit. I've got your resume here. Tell me about your job history. And they'll go, see, I'm trying to catch them to have a conversation. That is not a good sign when they are overthinking what they're going to say. They're going to represent me. I need them to be able to think on their feet and come across the phone with a little bit of energy, not a dead person, right? And then I'll say, okay, thanks for that. So tell me, what are you the best at as being an executive assistant or an assistant? What are you the best at? What do you enjoy the most? What do you not enjoy the most? And I'll find out that. And I said, well, I'm just curious, just for fun. Tell me about your hobbies. and then they'll go into different things and things like that. I just want to see if there's some energy in communicating. Once I hear that, then I say, great. The next step is this. I'm going to send you a KPA, which is a personality assessment and a DISC test. It'll probably take you an hour to take both of them, and you can take one, then take the other. And I said, today is Tuesday, can I have it back by 12 o'clock Friday? That's a test there. If they say yes, and it's 12:15 and I don't have it back, done. They're not in my world. Now, if I don't like the communication style that they had over the phone and they're going to represent me, I won't give them the test. I'll say, thank you so much. I just wanted to touch base. I'll let you know later this week what we've decided to do next. And then I just send them a really nice email saying, thank you for your time. We've filled the position. Okay, that's system number 2, is to get that really, really clear. And I have some other great tips like that that are so good. And I'm going to give you another one real fast. When somebody comes in to interview, the question that I ask, are you willing to promote me and the team to your friends and family to help them buy or sell real estate? If the answer is yes, I go, great. How many in your Facebook? How many on your cell phone? And so now I'm finding out what kind of, most of them have over 1,000 people in their Facebook. Are you willing to promote the team there? Well, yes. And I go, great. If they say no, then I find out why, and that's probably not going to move them forward very fast in my view. Okay, next slide, please. All right, system number 3, listings. So foundationally, how do you rate your listing systems right now? Do you have a pre-list package? Put it in the chat box, 1 to 10. Do you have a pre-list package? Do you bulletproof your checklists? Are they bulletproof, like nothing falls through? Listings, you can pretty much make that bulletproof. Do you pass the baton correctly so that their client isn't going, your name is Stephanie? Who are you calling? Well, we listed our house with Monica. Who are you? Did you pass the baton correctly? Do you give the feedback? Number 1 complaint, according to the National Association of Realtors, is that the seller never gets feedback on the showings. And then price improvements. Are you clear about that? Now, I know the market's red hot. We're probably not doing some of those things, and yet that's part of the systems. So will you guys please write in the chat box on a 1 to 10, how good are you at your systems? How good at your systems? Now, if you got on the call a little late, no worries. You will have the slideshow. You will have the recording. It'll all be sent to you. So Noah's a 7, 6, 3. Oh, there's a 6. Okay. All right. Not too bad. Not too bad. All right. So let's go to the next slide. So on the next slide, in Pass the Baton. So I have a very clear system on Pass the Baton. And Pass the Baton is where you as an agent take 2 minutes and 46 seconds. We've timed it to say to your assistant, here's their motivation. They're happy. They're sad. Here's the kids. Here's their dog. They don't have kids. They have a dog named Tank. He's 240-pound Rottweiler. He watches dog TV and he has his own bedroom. So when that assistant is calling, she's not doing, do you have any pets on the premise? No, the assistant says, oh my gosh, I heard about Tank, your family member. What a cool guy. He has his own TV. That's so cool. That's building that bridge. That's building that bridge. So on a scale of 1 to 10 for fun right now, are you passing the baton correctly? If you have an assistant right now, are you passing it correctly? Are you passing it correctly? So talk about the price, the personality styles, their motivation is really critical. Happy, sad, good situation, bad situation. So the assistant is supposed to call. Let me check the chat box here real quick. Okay. So, all right. No. Chat box. Put in the chat box on a 1 to 10. How are you doing on passing the baton if you have an assistant? Trisha, nice, 1. So that's the way I used to be, Valerie, too, 1 and a 2, because I just put the file down and say, call them. They need to sell. And yet there might be a divorce. There might be a death. There may be some big challenge. Maybe that the family's really mad that they're moving. So you have to know those things. All right. Okay, good. All right. So, and then some of you not having assistant right now, that's okay. These are all things that you really need to be clear about when you're making those calls to those clients. Assistant's first call checklist, they call within an hour, the contact information, info checklist, intro script, Do you have all of those things in place? So when the assistant calls, the first thing she says is, "Hi, this is Stephanie with Monica Reynolds' office. Thank you so much. We look forward to helping you sell your home. Congratulations, you guys are moving to Chicago and you've got a new job. That's awesome." And then she says, "Did I catch it a good time? Do you have about 15 minutes? Let me go through a few things with you." Asking for permission. Monica asked that I call you. It's part of our customer service. Then you go from there. So those are really important foundational things. Okay, let's go to the seller feedback. Next one, please, Stephanie. So on the feedback questions, if you didn't know and you're using something like Showing Desk or whatever it's called, stop doing that if it's with Zillow, because they've got all your information and they're collecting the database. So I've always said, do it personally, one-on-one, do it personally. And the reason is that when your assistant calls, "This is Stephanie with Monica Reynolds' office. Thank you for showing 123 Cherry Street today, at 4 o'clock, or today at 12. Can I get some feedback real quick from you?" Or yesterday, whatever it happens to be. I have 3 quick questions. It'll take 1 minute. Would your client like to buy the house? No. What would it take for your buyers to make an offer? Nothing. They hate the freeway noise. They're not going to live near a freeway again. Okay. Appreciate that. What, in your opinion, what do you value the home at? Oh, probably you're about 10,000, 20,000 too high. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Now, what if they said on number 2, well, the house is perfect. The location is perfect. The only thing is there's a wall between the kitchen and the family room. They wanted an open concept. And the assistant says, "Gosh, can we look into that? Maybe we can take it down to a pony wall, or we can maybe remove the wall entirely. Is that something they would be interested in?" True story, happened. And that's how you find those things out. And sometimes you can have offers come together when you get clarity, but the seller needs that information. Okay, let's go to the next system. System number 4, closings. This is the icing on the cake. This is where it becomes so powerful. We've built a great connection with the client, whether it's a buyer or a seller. We built a connection now, right? And now this is where the connection goes forward or not based on the closing. So I know you guys understand, your agents, you understand that the closing is where we continue to keep that client for life, or we're going to lose that client. And when we over communicate with a client, that will help a lot. When we keep the client informed of things that are happening that are out of our range. And so the scripts are going to be that an assistant would learn, it's real estate and people. We do everything to keep you informed, and yet it's real estate and it's people. And sometimes there's things that come up that we can't control. We will always keep you informed. We will always protect you as best we can. We always have your back. And so with that said, which I think is so important for you guys to hear, is that moving forward, you always want to make sure that that bridge of trust and that bridge of communication and that bridge of repeat and referral business, I'm your realtor for life. I'm your realtor for life. Okay. And so when you look at this, you're going to have a bulletproof checklist, pass the baton, which we've talked about before. I'll share more of that coming up. Setting expectations. And what's that? Call every day. Yes, I've got the scripts for the assistants to call every day. You just extracted 6% of the value of their home right off the top, whether you got the whole 6% or not, and you had the listing, that's what they've agreed to. If it's a seller, that you're representing, if it's a buyer, that there is a relationship that needs to be built. And you do that by calling them, and your assistant can say, "Just wanted to let you know everything is checking off in the file. Things are great. Do you have any question? Part of our customer service, Monica wanted to make sure I reach out." Now the assistant and you never say, "We're going to call every day." You don't do that. You just don't do that. But what you do, which I think is so powerful for all of you to really hear, is that you set the expectation, "I will call you often. We will always be available to you." And then you never say, "I'm going to call you every day." And reviews and referrals, you absolutely should get a 5-star review every single time from a client. And I teach the assistants that you strike when something good happened, when something was right, when they said, "Oh my gosh, it's so great that you called again and let us know. Thank you so much for noticing. May I ask you a favor? Our business is based on referrals from great people like you. May I ask you, if I send you a link to, whatever, blah, blah, would you please give us a 5-star review and mention our team? We so appreciate that. And then if you want, you can say, and we're going to send you a Starbucks card for a couple of cups of coffee on us. Very simple, just like that. Okay, the next slide, Miss Stephanie. And this one is back on the closings again about passing the baton. So if you're one agent and you're going to pass the baton to your assistant, then you're going to have that, conversation. If you have a specific TC, this script is for you where you're passing the baton to your TC, transaction coordinator, and you have the client on the phone, on speaker with your assistant. And you're saying, congratulations, you purchased a home. Do you have 2 minutes? I really appreciate working with you. And now we go through the closing process. Blank has a team that makes sure all the steps in the transactions run smoothly. I have an assistant on the phone, Janice, to help you. She's our professionally trained closing coordinator. Now that's a buyer agent one. So when you have your team and you're building a buyer agent, they need to pass the baton instead of just putting the file down to a transaction coordinator or your listing manager and say, or your closing manager and say, call them. No, there's a pass the baton. There's a total pass the baton. So that's the closing system. All right. And yet the next page is setting expectations for closings. Remember, this is where the relationship goes forward or not. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the request for repairs is meant to address any items the inspector points out that are potential health or safety concerns. Duh, right? And so when you look at it that way, those are the conversations that have to be said ahead of time. So that when we get into the negotiations of repairs, and only a licensed assistant can do that, we're setting it up that it's health and safety concerns or code violations, right? And then yet the script is different for the seller. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, every buyer will make a request for repairs for the home inspection. We've negotiated thousands of repairs, and it's our advice that you agree to any of the serious items that could be a health or safety concern. And we'll address those as we show up. And most of them say, well, we don't have any problem. And then we find a mold issue, right? And so, chances are the next buyer will have the same concerns. So we'll address them as we come up. But we're setting up the expectations. We're giving them some of the information so that they're not blindsided like, oh, well, we've got a problem now. And oh, when you have the health or safety concern, we're going to have this with the next buyer. You can't say no. And I understand market of the moment with very few listings on the market. We have a 5 million deficit of homes right now in the entire country. I get that. And yet I'm saying to you, you've got to prepare the seller, the buyer, in setting expectation for the repairs, for the appraisal, for the closing date, for the negotiation of repairs. All of that has to be set up ahead of time. It just makes life a lot easier. And I'm sure you get that. Okay, next slide. So on this one is repeat and referral business, okay? And this is system number 5. And so how successful are you at getting repeat and referral business from your current client? Meaning, are you getting a referral from them? Are you getting a review from them? So here's the script. Thank you for working with our team. We so appreciate your business. May I ask you a favor? Our business is based on referrals from great people like you. Who do you know right now is thinking about buying or selling? Well, thank you for thinking about that. And if you ask them consistently and you share with them that my job is to, on a scale of 1 to 10, to deliver a 10+ experience for you. We know it's real estate and people. And all I ask is during our time together, could you help me find one more great buyer or seller? I so appreciate you thinking about that. So you have those kind of conversations. Your assistant has those kind of conversations. These are systems. These are foundational systems. Okay, next slide, Miss Stephanie. All right, so system 6. All right, database. So the first question that I want to ask is, do you know how many you have in your database that are completes? Name, address, phone number, and email. So put in the chat box, yes or no. You know your number of completes. Name, address, phone number, and email. Not the incompletes, the completes, because that's the value of your database. It's not a Louis Vuitton bag. It's not a Lexus car, Escalade, or whatever. It is your database, okay? Okay, good. All right, thank you for sharing. All right, So your monthly, maybe, huh, Robin? Okay, good. I like the maybe. Maybe I know, maybe I don't know. Okay, good. Whatever way. All right. And Dorina, no. Okay, so that's a good thing to think about today. So your foundation, your only asset is your database. You should know that number. And every single day, you have a plan on how that's growing. So monthly, track the growth of your database. You have a marketing plan each month that goes to that database. You have smart plans. You know, you have the 36 touch, you're working the opportunities in pipeline and command. You have Facebook ads that are going out, telling people what's going on in the business, what's happening, what are you doing? You know, those are key things. So let's go to the next slide. So on tracking the growth of your database, which is the next slide. So Stephanie, next slide. Tracking the growth. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Increase the database by 3 per day and 60 per month. That's a Gary Keller rule. Now, if you have several people on your team, you're going to increase that more per day, and somebody needs to track that. That would be the assistant. That would be a system, right? Structure and organize your database by agent, team, vendor, sphere of influence, and past clients. Because when it comes to referrals, you want at least 35% of your business referrals. And some agents will say to me, we have 90%, referral. Then I go, great. What are you doing to get new business? You've got to be thinking about new business all the time. You've got to be thinking about bringing in new business. And yet, what percentage is from agents referrals? What percentage is from your team? What percentage is from your vendors? What percentage is sphere of influence? And what percentage is from past clients? Don't lump them all together. You can put them together as a total. Coming to 35% is your goal minimum. And then 65% of your business is new business. That's the goal. Okay. And so your assistant would be the person tracking that, building that, putting those systems and the marketing systems into place. System 7, let's go to that, lead generation. So doing pretty good on my time right now. I'm very respectful of this, and I want to leave a few minutes for questions. So, all right, how do we add 3 people per day? Well, Tricia, when you're making outgoing phone calls and you're calling around just listed, just souls, you're going out to dinner and you meet a great server and you go, hey, ever thought about a career in real estate? Well, maybe, and how about how long have you lived here? Oh, my family's lived here. Great. I'd love to stay in touch with you. Give me your name and phone number and blah, 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 blah. So you have to be purposeful about thinking about how to do that by making outgoing calls, by meeting people that you've never met before, by introducing yourself to people, by going to a party at night, by doing things in your community. Volunteering, you're going to meet people, so you have conscious effort. But I used to add 3 people just doing calling expireds and calling for sale by owners and calling just listed and just souls, doing circle prospecting. It was easy for me to do 3 a day minimum, but you set that goal. Okay, lead generation system. So what are the 5 sources of your business? But more importantly, in these calls in the future, if you decide to join the class, I talk about ROI and how to determine that. And the quarterly return is so critical on any investments. And so an assistant would help with that information and tracking all the leads and making sure that those leads went into the proper categories with the proper, 36 touch or the follow-up that was needed. Lead generation could be market of the moment. So right now it would be thinking about what are some of the ways to get an off-market listing. So an off-market listing, meaning it's not on the market yet. So do you have a probate system? Do you have a, out of area, non-owner occupied system where somebody owns a house and they own a house in Vegas, but they don't live there and there's a tenant there. Maybe they've owned the house for 5 or 6 years and maybe the value's doubled. Maybe they should hear from an agent like you. There's no competition there. So, and obviously making sure that you stay within the guidelines of a budget on lead generation. So those are all of the other things that I go over. Okay, so the next slide is going to be, what are your 5 sources of business? And so again, here's some of them. And the key thing for all of you to really think about is You know, a lot of agents will say, well, I have 20 sources, but what are the 5 sources and what is your marketing plan for the rest of the year? So I built out a very detailed system where that you choose the 5 systems, the 5 sources of business you have. And then we create a system on how to double that production each one. And what is your assistant responsible in that marketing plan, in that reminding you of the calls or getting you the call list to do. And so, you know, a lot of people are very successful at open houses right now. And then they get successful at that, and then they drop the ball and forget. And so these are the things that we look at and we discover what are your 5 top sources of business. Okay. And then if you go to the next slide, this is your bonus system. You got to track your numbers. If you hear anything from me right now, real estate is very simple. Real estate is merely, all it is merely is this, and that is that it's a math equation. It's a math equation. And so when you learn that, you also learn very simply that the bonus system here is that you track your daily numbers. How many contacts did you make? Did you set a listing appointment? Buyer broker agreement signed, listings taken, pending any buyers, pending any sellers, price improvements, closed buyer transaction, closed seller transactions. Now, the most important thing, the number on there, what do you think the most important number on there is? Put it in the chat box. Let me see what you guys know. What's the most important number on there? Listing appointments, contacts. Okay, all right. I think one person said it. There's 2 people now that said it right. The number one thing that's the most important number on there is appointments. Now it could be buyer appointments. It could be listing appointments. It's appointments. Because if you're not tracking the appointments every day, then you're not doing the activities to get the appointments. So appointments is critical to the success, because if you have the appointments, you're going to get the contract, it's listing, a buyer agreement, whatever it is. It's appointments, it's appointments, it's appointments. And yet so many times our team doesn't understand that the activities lead to the appointments. And if you're not getting the appointments, you're not doing the activities. And you guys know this. Tracking numbers, market statistics, sources of business, expense P&L. Most important thing, if you're looking at the tracking of the numbers, is your daily numbers and having some sort of accountability system for that. And obviously, tracking the sources of business. If you're not using opportunities in Command, it's probably my favorite thing in Command. Go take a look at that. That's pretty great. Okay, so next slide, please, Stephanie. And then I'm going to open it up for questions. You can put it in the chat box, or you can come off mute and raise your hand. That would be fine. If you can raise your hand on the little icons there, I'll be happy to call on you. And so what I want to share with you is that our next class starts tomorrow. And I believe it's at 2:00 Central. And it is for agents who do not have an assistant. About 40% of the class is that. It's for agents who just hired an assistant. It's for agents who have an assistant, and yet they want to put these foundational systems in place. You end up with a 450-page policy and procedures manual. I've written some of the best systems in the country because I've coached some of the very best agents. I've either written them or I stole from them and borrowed them. There's no new secrets in real estate, and I've tweaked them up and made them even better. So you're going to have everything from 75 checklists to probably 100 different letters that could be sent out, to emails, and you're going to have templates for all of those things. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. These systems are duplicatable and scalable. So if you're an agent without assistant, this class is for you. And if you are an assistant, this class is for you. If you're an agent and building a team, this class is for you. So basically, these systems will be put into place, and then so you will not be hostage to, let's say, hiring and not hiring, and then someone someone has to leave and you're accidentally left without, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You now have the systems where you can kind of plug and play your next assistant in. So that's the valuable piece there. It's $199 a month. It's a 6-month course. There are 3 calls per month. One is for agents to teach them to be great leaders and bosses and what we're going to cover for accountability. The second and third call, they're hour long, they're live, Q&A type of thing. And those questions or those calls are for the assistant. And so at the end, you will have this policy and procedures manual. I empower the assistant to be the CEO of the files. I empower them to be the assistant that keeps you on track, that handles those phone calls correctly. Now, with that said, I guarantee you that this will be an extremely important foundational investment in your career moving forward. So let me answer any questions. I don't see any hands up. Is there any questions in the chat box? Stephanie, do you see any? Okay, I saw one there. I have to go back to it.
I do. One James would like to know. He says the emails, letters, etc., texts, etc. So how do you capture assistants' emails and texts after a transaction? And do you prefer licensed assistants?
Well, I prefer licensed assistants. I hire talent first, and then I get them licensed. And then the second thing is that when are you talking about, Stephanie, how do you get the email of the buyer, like on your listing that you didn't represent? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think what he's saying is, so on the communication log, you call them and you write down what they say.
Right.
But if you're texting them or emailing them, then how do you have that? And
well,
email,
okay. So first, okay, let me stop right there. I get where you're going. So Stephanie and I've worked for 13 years, so she knows that I'm just occasionally rude like that. So let me just get this done fast. Okay, so here's the bottom line. Number one, a text. Has anyone ever had anyone say, hey, your texts are so great. I love our relationship through text. Can't wait to list my house again? No. Is a relationship built over an email? No. In fact, text and emails, that tonality can get a little sideways. So you pick up the phone. You pick up the phone. And so if you are communicating by text and email and they respond back, then you can put that in the communication log. It's not the first line of communication. So I want to make sure that everybody's clear about that. Okay. All right. What else, Stephanie? Another question?
Where do you track your numbers? Do you use a specific program, or how do you track your numbers?
You know, there's many different ways to do that. And I'm just going to give you a global one. You create a certain Excel spreadsheet where the numbers are tracked. And then we have a just do it form where agents will turn in a just do it form. So respectful of the digital world, respectful of command and everything else, I will go through some of those options with you on the class. But to just start it off, start doing it with an Excel spreadsheet. The other thing that Stephanie and I were extremely successful is we had a whiteboard and we tracked everything on that whiteboard. So you're going to get examples of our whiteboard that were in our walls on our office. And that's a great way to do it also. Okay. All right. What else, Steph?
Okay. Here's another one.
Oh man, you're in a water well. Didn't catch any of that.
Report or just the assistant?
What's that?
I'm sorry. Do the assistants and the agents complete the Friday report?
The answer is yes for the assistants and yes for the buyer agents. I never had the rainmakers fill out a Friday report because I'm assuming you know what the 5 things you did to move the business forward. And if you don't, I'll remind you. You do your lead generation, you do your lead follow-up, you go on appointments, you write contracts, and you role play. So I never have the rainmakers do it. However, any buyer agent that you hire or any assistant that you have, this is accountability. This is a check mark, and assistants love to have this final thing on Friday that they submit. Okay. All right. What else, Steph?
Okay, Monica, what do you use to implement your systems? I feel like I put the systems together and then don't know how to implement them with the team.
Well, okay, so we talk about that in the class and how to implement a system. So let's say we're going to implement a pre-list package, okay? So first of all, you're going to have a tab in your policy and procedures manual about your pre-list package, okay? So if I was a brand new assistant, I would say, here is a copy of the pre-list package. Here's how to find it in my system. Here's how you print it off. Now, that means that you had the pre-list package all done, and here's when I expect it, and here's how you do it, right? And so that's putting a system into place. If you don't have a pre-list package, then you want to build that system. And one is, I give you a copy of the pre-list package in the class that I have, and then I tell you how to get one off of KW Connect, or excuse me, Command has a pre-list package for you. We go through how to pull that together. And so you only take one project at a time. And so once you have your pre-list package done, then it goes, a copy of that goes in your policy and procedures manual with how to get that again. And then also, how do you make improvements? So in my pre-list package, we had a graphic artist that we could contact and make small improvements to it for like $50 every time they made an improvement, because it was really tight and clean. And so I give you all of those tips and a company to use that's real reasonable, okay? And so you take one system at a time and put it into place. And so if it's a listing checklist, you analyze that, you see what's missing, and then that's a moving document all the time, meaning when you make a mistake, that goes in the checklist. When something falls through a crack, that goes in the checklist. And yet, so do you have a checklist that you're using right now? Spend the time, carve off an hour, make it better. Source of business, personality type, was there a referral fee paid? Is there an HOA? Get all that included. And I give you examples of some really, really good ones. And then you put that into your manual, and then you put that into your files, and that's what you use. Okay, so hopefully that helps a little bit. What else, Stephanie? Any other questions?
Yes, is it order to the foundational systems that you will present during the Perfect Assistant class?
Yeah.
And what do the 3 calls each month target?
Okay, so this is a very fast gloss over the 7 foundational or 8 foundational systems, and there's a lot more. There's a lot on goal setting. So the first couple classes are on communication with some very clear communication guidelines on listing updates and pending updates and production updates, and then obviously the Friday report and how to communicate with the clients. And I go over personality styles like the DISC, and I go over a high D and how rude they are, like me, or on high I, where they have a lot of energy, and the S, they're the nicest people in the world. They're the golden retrievers, 40% of the world, thank goodness is that. And then the C, the analyticals. And so we learn how to communicate with those clients, you know, and I teach the assistants how to do that. The other thing is we go into job descriptions and their schedule, then we go into listings, and we go into pendings, and we go into customer service, repeat and referral, lead generation, goal setting. And then that's pretty much the overview of that really quickly. But each month is a different theme. And so we build gradually, and then suddenly at the end, you have this book. The calls are recorded if you miss. They are live. I'm live every single time. And there's Q&A for 15 minutes after that, or I call on them and I say, what's the best thing, Abby, that you got out of today's call? Shannon, what's the best thing you got out of today's call? And so I call on them, so it's very interactive, and it's interactive for you also as an agent. Now, the next thing is that the calls are recorded, and when the session is over in 6 months, you have 2 months to go back and listen to something again, or go back and refresh your memory on the material. Everything there is there for 8 months. So you got 2 months after the class to get the material and the calls. The thing I want you to hear right now, though, is that I'm committed to the success of you. If you don't have an assistant right now, come into the class. You will get the foundational pieces. So when you hire someone, they'll know what's going on. And if you hire someone during the class, they can go back and catch up. And then they still have 2 months to go back and review even more. So if you don't have one, this class is for you. If you have an assistant, make the investment so that you can build these foundational pieces, because if you want to grow a team eventually, you've got to have the systems in place. Now, they're duplicatable and scalable. Do they need tweaking all the time? Absolutely. Market of the moment. We have a whole COVID section. Hopefully we don't need that. We're going to call it a pandemic section, because you never know, but we never had that before. We also have a section on off-market, meaning off-market listings. What are some of the things that you can do that are off-market? We have a golden letter that gets sent out to clients. And this is something that came out of Gary's mastermind with the top 100. I give you all that stuff. I'm in those masterminds. So listen to me about this. This call is an important call for you to make a decision. If you want to move your business forward with foundational things, all you have to do is go sign up today It starts tomorrow. The first call is for you for agents. Then the second and third call this month will be for the assistants. And then we'll give you a Web 100, $100 off of the first month. So that'll be helpful for you, I hope. Any other questions, Miss Stephanie?
I don't see any other questions, Monica.
Okay, all right. Hello, everyone. And so thank you for putting all that great information. And so again, systems can be rated 8, 9 plus. You're never going to be a 10 because you're always tweaking. And I call that CANI, constant, never ending improvement. And yet I know that when you come to these classes, you will have these foundational pieces. And I appreciate the question of someone saying, gosh, I got all this. And how do I implement? You implement one thing at a time. So on every single call, I ask the assistants this, what's the one thing you're going to implement? But I also give them a homework assignment, which you are privy to. You may go back and listen to those calls that the assistant was on. If you have an assistant, I'm asking you not to be on the call with them at the same time. That way they can speak freely with me, what are the challenges and how they need help. All right. So, okay, Graham is saying this recording will be available in 24 hours. So there you have it. And then we also send it to them too. Also, Graham, right?
Yes, I'll send it out to you and Stephanie, and then y'all can relay that, and hopefully, yeah, we'll get some.
Okay, good.
We'll sign up for tomorrow.
Okay, you guys. So go sign up. Come have some fun with me. I'm pretty fun on the calls, and we have a good laugh about the business, and we get things done. And you're going to end up with all the systems and all the foundational things you need to double your business. Thanks,
Monica.
everybody. I appreciate your time. Thanks,
Monica.
Graham. Thanks, Stephanie.
Monica,
Yes.
how do you onboard an EA in terms of making sure that they have all the information to get them started for setup, like our passwords, and do you have a?
Well, that's a pretty broad question, Tawana. Okay, so here's the thing. When you're onboarding assistant, you need to have an orientation onboard checklist.
Okay.
And so you start writing out all the different things. So the computer and all the different things with the computer, okay? And that can also be database and it's systems.
Okay.
And it's introducing them to the players in the market center and introducing them to the team leader. So that you need an onboarding checklist, which I have in the class. But you need to have a very detailed onboarding checklist. So all of those things are things that you're thinking of, and yet I bet you haven't written them all down yet.
Okay.
So take one section at a time. So here's what you need to know about my listings. Here's what you need to know about my pendings. Here's what you need to know about the office. Here's what you need to know about Keller Williams. Here's what you need to know about Kellerization. Here's all of our TL, OP, RD, ROM. What do all those things mean, right?
Mhm.
And so we have our own language. So think about that. And then if you join the class, you're going to get a whole system like that from me. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tawana. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day. I'm Monica at kw.com. If you have any questions, Monica at KW. Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Thank you,
Graham.
guys.
Thanks, Steph. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.